Episode 651, Causing Trouble. Trying to repeal Bessy differed from Clarissa. Clarissa wanted to be transparent and didn't want to attract anyone's attention. Bessy, however, stood out from the crowd no matter where she was. When she had come in with Scarlett just now, almost everyone in the room had seen her, but Scarlett's revelation later on had attracted everyone's attention. Now that she suddenly spoke, everyone in the hall looked at the sound source. Bessy stood up and walked over with her eyebrows lowered, her hoodie covering her eyebrows, making it difficult to see what she was thinking. Apart from Scarlett, only Carmen had seen Bessy personally because of her relationship with Clarissa. Bessy's aura was so special that anyone who had seen her once would never forget her. Hence, even if she couldn't see Bessy's face, Carmen could recognize her. She was taken aback for a moment before reacting.
Mr. Wilson, this...
The old man's men glanced at him. Mr. Wilson glanced at Bessy and then withdrew his gaze.
Take them away together.
Because of Bessy's words, Mr. Wilson wouldn't forget her even if she hadn't stood up. After speaking, his eyebrows deepened and he turned to Section Chief Soup and the others.
Take them all away too.
What Scarlett brought out this time was no small matter, and Mr. Wilson would not let any worker on her team go. Section Chief Soup and Deputy Marshal were of no threat to Deputy Inspector Wilson at all. The only threat to him was Investor Hale, the thorn of the investigation department. After he finished speaking, he looked apprehensively at Carmen. Carmen might have remained silent if he only took Scarlett away. But she would definitely stop him from taking away people like Section Chief Soup and the others. Mr. Wilson was ready to fight Carmen, but he didn't expect her to just glance lightly at him and turn around to leave? This surprise came so quickly that he didn't dare to believe it. It wasn't until Carmen led her men out of the door that Mr. Wilson really felt like she wasn't going to fight with him this time. This was out of character for her. Although Mr. Wilson found it strange, the more important thing right now was Scarlett and her computer. He was walking on thin ice now. If he didn't handle it well, he could very well spend the rest of his life in jail, so he didn't have any time to say anything else. He could only wait for this matter to be settled before talking to Carmen. Investigator Hale, about Section Chief Soup. Carmen's men looked up at her. Carmen stood upright at the elevator entrance without speaking, but her secretary smiled meaningfully upon hearing this.
Mr. Wilson kicked the iron plate this time.
Iron plate? Section Chief Soup is an iron plate? The man was taken aback. Carmen's secretary didn't answer him and just said,
I'm afraid there'll be a big shuffle this time.
Inside the room, Frida and the others had yet to recover from their shock. The entire investigation department would be shaken because of Mr. Wilson. Now that Scarlett released these pieces of evidence in public, the results could be imagined.
Hey, this matter has nothing to do with us, right?
At the thought of Mr. Wilson and how Section Chief Soup had been taken away too, everyone on the 18th floor was very disturbed and uneasy. Frida shook her head and narrowed her eyes. Obviously, she hadn't expected such a result and paused for a moment. We didn't sign the agreement, so we won't be involved.
That's good.
The remaining 18th floor people were immensely thankful for not being involved with Section Chief Soup. Losing a job was a small matter, but losing a life was a big deal. When they returned to the 18th floor, someone said, Scarlett is pretty impressive to be able to find that out. Unfortunately, even Investigator Hale can't protect her this time. Everyone had seen how Carmen directly left. At the nearest detention center, Bessy's computer had automatically shut down. It required pupil verification to be turned on again. Mr. Wilson directly told one of his IT confidants to hack into Bessy's computer and change Scarlett's accounts. He was afraid that Scarlett would have the original disk, so he wanted to check the computer to avoid cloud synchronization. The IT confidant plunged directly into it and just opened his own computer next to Bessy's computer port when he was suddenly shocked.
This computer's firewall isn't provided by the World Poker Tour.
Resolve it quickly. whispered the person beside him. "Mr. Wilson is very anxious." The IT confidant didn't dare to speak anymore and entered a string of codes quickly. Bessy's computer automatically defended itself, and he had to try for half an hour before barely cracking the pupil verification. Inside the interrogation room, at the end of the corridor, there were 7 people, including Bessy. The detainees stood outside, while the inside was similar to other detention centers, with a table and a bench. Sitting on the bench, Bessy looked down at the intrusion alert displayed on her phone and raised an eyebrow. Then, she remotely unlocked the computer. "Bessy," Scarlett glanced at her. "Your computer?" She remembered that Bessy's computer had a lot of things. Besides the information in the Physics Research Institute, there were also her comics. "It's okay. Consider it a gift to him," Bessy said casually with her legs crossed. "I was just wondering how to balance the investigation department." She glanced at Scarlett thoughtfully. The moment Bessy lifted the lock, the IT confidant in the office finally found out that he had hacked into the computer. He exclaimed in surprise, "Mr. Wilson, I'm in. This is obviously an IT expert's computer. It even has its own software power code. Mr. Wilson, what do you need?" Since he was his confidant, Mr. Wilson didn't hide things from him and directly told him to find the encrypted files. The IT confidant pressed the simple code lock of the hacker world and found a somewhat encrypted file. C7 Project. C7 Project? He glanced at Mr. Wilson and asked if this was the correct file. Although the title was strange, Mr. Wilson didn't think much about it and said directly, "Destroy it." The encrypted file couldn't be cracked. It could only be forcibly broken. At the same time, the computer page suddenly went black and a red exclamation mark appeared. At the detention center, the office issued a warning alarm.
"Warning. Abnormal activity in the top secret level. Warning. The abnormal IP address has been captured."
Those who dealt with data exchanged glances, then stood up and picked up their walkie-talkies with serious expressions.
"All departments, please pay close attention."
At the same time, they quickly found the place where the change had occurred. The personnel responsible for the top-secret information rushed over and notified the detention center about the place. In less than 10 minutes, Mr. Wilson's confidant hadn't even finished dealing with Bessy's computer. Suddenly, their whole office was surrounded. Mr. Wilson was contacting people to check Scarlett's social media and various accounts, as well as those of Section Chief Soup. He had a wide network and quickly managed to check their accounts. Before they had time to interrogate Scarlett, someone broke in. The man at the front, the captain of the base, took out his ID and pointed at the people in the entire office. "I'm from the base. You're involved in a top-secret project of the International Physics Research Institute. Please come with us." Noticing Bessy's computer on the table, he narrowed his eyes and said sternly, "Where's the owner of this computer?" Before Mr. Wilson had time to say anything, his mind was already blown by the man's words. The top-secret project of the International Physics Research Institute? Had he heard wrongly? "Where is she?" Seeing that no one answered, the captain asked, harshly again. The head of the detention center supported himself with his hands on the table, his legs almost turning into jelly. She's at the end of the corridor." Glancing at him, the captain told his men to control the people in the office, then directly walked to the end of the corridor. Behind him, the head of the detection center knelt on the ground. He had only gotten involved in this matter on Mr. Wilson's account, and originally thought that this incident wouldn't be able to turn any waves. Who knew that the person he had arrested actually had top-secret information that involved the CIA? This time, it was a real earthquake. The detention center was at the end of the corridor. Section Chief Soup didn't speak all the way because Mr. Wilson's men were around. They only carefully discussed countermeasures once they had entered this detention center. Most of the discussion was by Section Chief Soup and his confidants. In order to save Scarlett, the best result of the discussion was that Scarlett take the initiative to destroy all the evidence on Mr. Wilson. As for how she had found them, they didn't ask, nor did they accuse her of boldly making the matter public without regard for anything. "Scarlett,
Listen to me. I was the one who brought you to the 18th floor back then, so I'm responsible for your safety,
Section Chief Soup calmly said.
You can let Mr. Wilson rest assured first, and once he is relaxed, I'll tell someone to send you abroad overnight.
Scarlett had her head lowered and was thinking about what to eat with Bessy later. Upon hearing this, she looked up in a daze and said, "You don't have to trouble yourself." "What do you mean?" Madeline had entered the industry earlier than Scarlett and knew exactly what kind of situation they were in. She said urgently, "Why are you so calm and collected? Do you know how much this incident has affected you?" She was still talking when the door opened. The captain of the base entered and swept his eyes across the entire room. Upon seeing Bessy sitting safely on the chair, he heaved a sigh of relief and wiped off the fine sweat on his forehead.
Miss Miller, please don't do such a big thing in the future. If you want to do something, please let me handle it directly.
They had really thought that a hacker more powerful than Bessy had come to steal their national secrets, and their heart had almost collapsed. Episode 652. Are you planning to scare the family to death? Having cooperated with Michael, the police station knew that 129's firewall was designed by Bessy. They had spent a lot of money to ask her to redesign the system for them. Although many people attacked their firewall daily, they could now basically sit back and relax without worrying about the system's protected files. Thus, when signs of the classified documents being touched appeared, they had indeed been taken aback. Along the way, the captain had gradually reacted to the situation, and after seeing Bessy inside, he finally heaved a sigh of relief. Bessy put down her phone and looked up at the captain. Before she had said anything, the captain introduced himself.
I'm the captain of the police station. I used to be Mr. Clark's subordinate, and I was also there when you signed the agreement with the bureau chief.
However, there had been too many big bosses in the scene then, and the captain had been unremarkable. Hence, he knew Bessy might not have noticed him then. Bessy nodded without telling him she remembered him.
Okay, you can take care of it. Then your computer,
the captain replied respectfully. Getting up from the chair, Bessy squeezed her wrists and looked up slightly. Bring it back. The evidence is all inside. The captain looked at her, a little hesitant. Bessy's computer. He didn't dare to use it. It's okay. Bessy came over and patted the captain on the shoulder, smiling. Go deal with it first. I have other things to handle here. Upon hearing this, the captain didn't dare to disturb her business affairs and quickly returned to deal with Mr. Wilson's affairs. When the two were speaking, no one except Scarlett dared to speak. It wasn't until the captain left that Madeline swallowed. She finally recognized Bessy's face a little now. Perhaps her real life was too attractive, but she didn't dare to recognize her. Scarlett? Madeline stumbled over her words. Your friend. Yeah? Scarlett also returned to her senses and glanced at her. Which is better for steak? Maestro's Steakhouse or Fogo de Chao? Madeline took a while to respond. Fogo de Chao? Thanks. Scarlett politely thanked her and turned back to Bessy. Bessy, let's go to Fogo de Chao. Bessy didn't know about these restaurants, so she casually agreed to Scarlett's suggestion. She tapped her phone with one hand and waited for Scarlett to come out. When Scarlett walked to her, she glanced at Section Chief Soup and the others. Shall we go together? Her tone was very polite, but inexplicably, even Section Chief Soup didn't dare to reject her. The group exchanged glances and then all followed her. Among them, Easton's expression was the stiffest. Bessy first went out and prepared to call Michael, telling him she was having lunch with Scarlett. Section Chief Soup and the others remained in the detention center at the back. When they left, the head of the detention center staggered over as soon as he heard the news. According to their positions, the head of the detention center was 2 levels higher than Section Chief Soup. However, when he saw Section Chief Soup at this time, he bowed respectfully with clasped hands.
Section Chief Soup, my subordinates were insensitive and arrested you by mistake. I'll definitely investigate this matter and give you a satisfactory explanation.
He was trembling a little, and fine sweat broke on his forehead. Section Chief Soup and Madeline weren't people who had never seen the market before, but this situation wasn't what they had expected at all. At this time, they only turned to look at Scarlett, who was a few steps away. Upon seeing her, the detention head was stunned, and then quickly greeted her.
Miss Rogers, it turns out to be you. This matter.
I know. Scarlett knew the detention head as he had cooperated with Harvey before. This matter has been taken over by the police station. We won't interfere anymore. She kindly didn't mention Bessy, for fear that the detention head would be scared to tears. Upon hearing this, the detention head nodded.
Then I'll go and find the captain.
After he left, Scarlett turned back to Section Chief Soup and the others, smiling. Let's go. Did you see the look on the captain just now? Madeline walked beside Easton and asked stiffly. Easton was calmer than her and nodded casually.
I did. I think he's about the same level as Investigator Hale.
Seeing how calm he was, Madeline glanced at him and said quietly, Aren't you curious? Aren't you shocked? They didn't see Carmen much in the investigation department, and it was even harder for them to see people from the police station of the same level as her. However, Madeline and the others weren't shocked about seeing the captain. Instead, they were shocked by the captain's attitude towards Bessy.
It's nothing to be shocked about.
Easton silently glanced at her.
Once you know who Scarlett's friends are, you'll think everything is normal.
Section Chief Soup and Madeline did find Bessy very familiar. After all, Bessy and Michael had been famous in Evanston for so long, so the most powerful people had already received their basic information. Although Bessy's trump card remained hidden, checking on basic information like her appearance was still possible. There was still a difference between her real person and her photos, especially since Bessy barely showed her entire face. Section Chief Soup and Madeline had only occasionally seen pictures of her, but after such a long time and the fact that Bessy wasn't in the same industry, their memories were already blurry. But upon hearing Easton's words, Madeline asked quietly, She's really...
I'm definite and certain.
Easton glanced at her.
There's no one in the circle of Evanston who doesn't recognize her face.
After all, everyone had received a warning from Michael in private. Section Chief Soup let out a sigh of relief, not knowing how to think of Scarlett now. The group went to Fogo de Chao for lunch. During the meal, even the talkative Easton also bowed his head to eat silently. After lunch, Section Chief Soup and the others stood at the door and took a taxi back. Bessy followed Scarlett, buttoning the hat on her head, waiting for Sergeant Baldwin's car to come. You're planning to work in the investigation department in the future without taking a part-time job? Bessy stuck her hands in her pocket and glanced at her. Scarlett pursed her lips and seemed to smile. 129? No, don't help Jared clean up the mess. Bessy tilted her head indifferently. I mean, photography. Are you interested in learning from Clarissa? Before Scarlett could answer, Bessy's phone rang. It was for Scarlett from the detention center. It was the detention head.
Miss Rogers, your phone is still in the detention center. I heard from my subordinate that Mrs. Grant called you just now.
Just after she finished the call with the detention head, she heard a voice from not far away.
Scarlett? Weren't you in the police station just now?
The voice was a little sharp. Scarlett glanced at the sound source and saw Mrs. Grant and Victoria. Screech! Sergeant Baldwin's car stopped at the hotel entrance, and he got out of the car to open the back door. Without even looking at Mrs. Grant, Bessy raised her chin and gestured for Scarlett to get into the car. Mrs. Grant and Victoria stood rooted to the spot, watching as Scarlett got into the black car. Mrs. Grant knew many people who had that sort of car, which wasn't a luxury car, but the license plate number belonged to the military. As a member of the circle, Mrs. Grant could forcibly recognize the license plate number that started with a little red number. Scarlett knew people from the military? Shocked, she watched as the car left, and then turned thoughtfully to Victoria. She also realized that Victoria was rooted to the spot in shock. Victoria, do you know the person just now? Victoria returned to her senses and quickly said, No, I was just wondering how she managed to get out of the police station. Mrs. Grant was still thinking about Scarlett and didn't notice anything wrong with Victoria's reaction. When the two entered the hotel together, Victoria looked back. Having fought with Bessy twice and having her 2 careers fail because of her, Victoria naturally remembered her and could recognize her even if her face wasn't exposed. She never imagined that Bessy would have a good relationship with Scarlett. She also knew that Mrs. Grant only liked her because she was suitable for her son in terms of status and in all other aspects. She knew that Mrs. Grant looked down upon Scarlett's birth, but if she found out that Scarlett knew Bessy, Victoria clenched her fists and didn't tell Mrs. Grant about Bessy. But the bottom of her heart began to struggle. In the car, Scarlett stared at Bessy in surprise. "Film God is getting married? Jack just notified me. It'll be next month." Bessy also had a headache at the thought of Clarissa, who was too casual with family members and had yet to bring them to meet her family. The wedding was even arranged by Jack alone. "I can't believe such a day is coming." Scarlett pursed her lips and smiled. Film God's fans finally have their wish come true. Bessy also leaned back, thinking about how she never expected Clarissa to become her aunt. Michael had also complained to her about her seniority more than once or twice. He was obviously of father-level status, but had to call other people brother or elder no matter where he went. In particular, he had seriously talked to her about Brandon. Who could have imagined that his friend, despite the age difference, Brandon, would become his uncle at rocket-like speed within a year, and was now twice his seniority? Bessy brought Scarlett to the Miller family's house. She still had to go to the Miller family's house to discuss about Clarissa, mainly because they wanted to see her parents. As for Scarlett, Bessy asked her to do the photography for Zeke's wedding. Zeke, James, and the others were all sitting inside. After politely greeting each of them, Scarlett sat quietly while listening to them discuss about Clarissa and Zeke. Jack had already arranged the big and small matters, so Zeke only had to personally handle a few things by himself. For example, finally meeting her parents.
"We're going to the Hale family's house tomorrow."
Standing aside, Jack listened to their discussion and couldn't help but pause.
"You're going together? All of you?"
Bessy glanced at him and hesitated. Isn't it more sincere like that? They had heard that because of Clarissa's previous failed marriage, the Hale family attached great importance to her next marriage. They had to give face. Kenneth, who was drinking tea with James, said,
"I promised Michael to adorn Clarissa with more pride. Brother Miller, is that the proper way to say it?"
James nodded.
"Yes, that's right. You're making rapid progress."
Jack was speechless. Were they all crazy? Were they trying to scare the family to death? Episode 653. Tell Clarissa to come down now.
"I feel that you're sincere,"
James agreed. He then clapped his hands and continued.
"Finally, my brother is interested in a girl. Bessy was already 10 when I was his age. We cannot afford to make any mistakes."
It was the first time they were visiting after all. Hence, James didn't want to be a burden to Zeke. They must visit them. It wasn't just about Bessy, Clarissa, or Film God. It involved 4 big families. Zeke was no longer restricted by his identity. He no longer had to be so careful. He was handsome and adorned by everyone. Tons of women from the 4 families wished to marry him. This matter would affect not just the entertainment industry, it would send shockwaves in the capital's inner circle as well.
"If everything is all right with you guys, I'll get the gifts."
The butler gave up and said,
"We should visit tomorrow morning before 10 a.m.
"What do you mean by 10 a.m.? Samuel asked as he approached. He was just done with his work and hadn't gotten the chance to change. Bessy looked at him and answered, "We'll have to be at Clarissa's before 10 a.m. tomorrow." She would have to address Clarissa differently in the future. Bessy picked up the phone and stood up. She then remembered something and spoke to Scarlett. "It'll take a couple of days to settle the things at the investigation department. Take a few days off." "All right." Scarlett was familiar with Clarissa, as she had taken good care of her and Bessy. Scarlett was planning to help with the photography at the wedding. She loved such events. However, as the chief photographer was Clarissa during Bessy's wedding, Scarlett couldn't do anything that day. Bessy then looked at Samuel and asked him to send her back. Samuel nodded and replied, "All right." All that was left to do was to settle the gifts that they would bring tomorrow. Already, too many people were going, and there was no point for Samuel and Scarlett to join in. Scarlett also wanted to check on her equipment, so both of them left. Samuel drove his usual 4-seater today. He unlocked the car. Scarlett went to the back seat and realized that there was a pile of things placed in the back seat. She froze. Samuel frowned and explained,
I'm sorry, I forgot my mom brought me some stuff. You'll have to sit in the co-pilot seat.
Scarlett then sat on the co-pilot seat. Samuel started the car. He became more mature after enlisting in the military for 2 years. However, he was still a prideful person. He would only obey Bessy and Michael in the capital. However, he was driving the car rather carefully this time. He was, in fact, slower than most cars on the road. He was even playing some soothing music. Scarlett leaned against the car door as she stared at the scenery outside. Then, Samuel's phone rang. He picked it up and put it on speaker mode. Scarlett couldn't pretend not to hear him. It was Samuel's mother. She asked,
Are you back?
No. Samuel already knew what she was about to say and immediately rejected it. His mother chuckled.
Miss Whiteley is heading over tonight. Come and meet her. You're already 28. Are you only planning to get married after I die?
Michael had skipped 2 grades previously. Hence, even though they enrolled in high school and university together, he was younger than Samuel. Samuel didn't expect this from his mom and immediately disconnected the call. He then glanced at Scarlett and explained,
She's referring to a daughter of her friend. She's trying to play matchmaker.
If you like that girl, you can try. Scarlett thought he was asking her for advice, so she gave him a suggestion. Scarlett then sighed. She shouldn't have taken this ride home. She wouldn't have sat on the passenger seat even if it was Luke driving. However, Samuel didn't seem to like her suggestion. He didn't speak again for the rest of the ride. He didn't pick up his mother's call as well, but he turned on the music instead. It was only when they reached her place that he turned off the music. He then sent Scarlett to her door in silence. Samuel then frowned and smoked a cigarette when Scarlett entered her school. His vibes had changed after being in the military for 2 years. On top of that, his perfect body proportions attracted everyone's attention. However, the fierce look on his face deterred everyone from approaching him. Samuel returned home. His mother was sending off an old woman with a smile. The old woman's face lit up when she saw him. Samuel removed his cap and sat on the sofa in silence. Samuel's mother returned after sending the old woman off. She saw the state that her son was in and sighed. The Bright family was a new power in the capital. This was mainly because Samuel had chosen the right people to support previously. They weren't as powerful as the older families. Samuel had a reputation for being a player in the capital. However, he made it in the end and was in a comfortable position now, even though his family was nothing compared to the Clark and Miller families.
What are you looking at?
Samuel asked as he found that his mother was staring at him. His mother answered,
Son, I feel I should give up.
Back then, she didn't know much about Scarlett, but after that, she found out that she was a close friend of Bessy's and Luke's sister. Her family had made a lot of contributions to the country as well. Her father had received national recognition for his works, and her family members had dedicated their lives to the country for 3 generations. Everyone in her family was a force to be reckoned with. Even though Scarlett wasn't as pretty as Bessy, she was just as mature and had the same temperament as her. Her family's contributions and histories were too overwhelming. Samuel's mother could only look at Scarlett with nothing but respect. She would only be attracted to successful, intelligent people like Jacob. Samuel's mother felt like she would never be attracted to Samuel, who could only match Jacob in terms of looks. Furthermore, would Bessy, Michael, or Luke even accept him? Samuel fell into silence. He picked up his cap, headed upstairs, and called Michael. At the same time, Bessy was on the phone with Clarissa, telling her that they were visiting with Film God tomorrow. Clarissa was still very busy with her work, but she agreed without giving much thought. When she returned home, her mother and father asked about Carmen while having dinner.
We've heard that something is going on at the investigation department. Are you aware of it? Are your sister and her husband all right?
It's just some shifts in the positions. Clarissa heard about it from Bessy. She ate some food and continued. There will be 3 pillars of power in the investigation department in the future. Sister will be fine. Clarissa thought that the 3 pillars of power would be Carmen, Gerald, and Scarlett. The investigation department belonged to the York family after all. Hence, Bessy would have given that position to Scarlett eventually. The Hale family trusted Clarissa completely now, so they stopped discussing it after her assurance. The next day, on a Friday, the Hale family was done with their breakfast, but Clarissa was nowhere to be seen. Mrs. Palmer from the neighborhood came over.
I've heard that Clarissa has returned.
Mrs. Palmer wanted to introduce Clarissa to a boyfriend. She continued,
He's a good pick. He's the boss of a listed company.
Mrs. Palmer then showed a picture to Clarissa's mother. Clarissa's mother replied,
Isn't he a bit old? Furthermore, he has a kid.
Clarissa was just 29, but the boss of the listed company looked at least 40.
Well, I only introduced him to you because of how close we are. The kid is just a few years old. His income is very high and he doesn't mind your daughter,
Mrs. Palmer said.
There isn't anyone else with such high qualifications. It's all right. We don't need your help.
Clarissa's father immediately rejected her with a frown.
He looks as old as me. Do you think your daughter is still young? She doesn't have many choices. If no one else wants her, how can she marry?
Mrs. Palmer was offended and wanted to leave. Suddenly, their maid entered the room in shock and said, There are a lot of people outside. They said that they were here for Clarissa's proposal. Clarissa's proposal? The Hale family was shocked. Clarissa's father rushed out immediately, and so did Mrs. Palmer. How could someone be better than the boss of a listed company? Dozens of cars were parked outside. Other than Bessy and Michael, Jared and the others were here as well. Clarissa was getting popular these few years. Even Kenneth was here as well. Some of their cars were extravagant, while others may look normal, but their car plates would show otherwise. Everyone in the neighborhood was shocked by the cars. Once Clarissa's parents went out, they saw Zeke in the center of it all. He was wearing formal attire and speaking to Bessy. Zeke looked up and introduced himself to Clarissa's father when he came out.
Mr. Hale, I'm Zeke Miller.
His handsome face was radiating. Episode 654. The Proposal. Clarissa's father couldn't understand what was going on. He might not have known other celebrities, but since it was Film God, he knew him even though he didn't know much about the entertainment industry. Clarissa's mother was a big fan of his as well. She was even disappointed when Zeke focused on the businesses of the Miller family and only acted in the realm of gods. Their DVD collection at home included all of his works. The Hale family was also worried about Clarissa. Lewis was considered a fine lad in the capital's circle. Hence, Clarissa's father felt it would be hard for Clarissa to find a guy like him after the divorce. When Mrs. Palmer tried to introduce a guy closer to her age, Clarissa's father even wanted to give up trying to introduce guys to Clarissa. But Clarissa's father looked up and saw Bessy and Michael next to Zeke. Bessy hid from the public for the past year. Hence, even though Clarissa's father felt like she looked familiar, he didn't recognize her, and he wasn't familiar with the IT or physics industry. But Clarissa's father recognized Michael, who had appeared on the news previously. He was utterly shocked and couldn't understand what was happening for a moment. He turned and looked at Clarissa's mother and the maid. The maid had recovered from her shock. She then tapped on Clarissa's mother's back and whispered, "Let's welcome them in." Clarissa's parents then broke out of their shock and said,
"Please come in."
The crowd then entered the house. The rest of the onlookers remained outside. Mrs. Palmer was still confused. She hadn't really understood what Zeke had just said. What did she hear exactly? Film God was going to ask for Clarissa's hand in marriage?
Mrs. Palmer, you were close to them just now. Did you see who those people were?
The rest of the onlookers asked Mrs. Palmer. Mrs. Palmer was confused as well.
I saw Film God just now, but that's impossible. Clarissa is a divorcee and is just a reporter in news media. Why would Film God?
How did she attract his attention?
We weren't asking you about Film God. We know who he is. We're asking about the people next to him. Did you see who they were?
The onlookers asked as they gathered around her. It was just a couple of minutes between Film God's arrival and them entering the house. Mrs. Palmer was still shocked by his appearance and didn't pay attention to the people around him. It was only after hearing what they had said that she asked,
"Why are you guys so concerned about the people that came with Film God?
Shouldn't the focus be on Film God?"
No. Have you seen the cars?
The neighbors showed Mrs. Palmer to the cars parked outside. The first car was a black sedan, but the subsequent cars were simply dazzling. Mrs. Palmer knew that the cars were not normal.
The cars belonged to his friends. The oldest daughter from the Hale family would never have gotten such a crowd. Even though the first car is just a black sedan, the license plate belongs to the military. Only a powerful family can own it. The second daughter of the Hale family seems powerful.
Mrs. Palmer was shocked.
I just announced that she will never get married. Will I get in trouble?
Of course, they wouldn't have imagined that the cars coming the next month would be even more dazzling. A post became popular on Twitter.
Oh damn, it's them again. They suddenly appeared in our neighborhood. We've managed to snap a few photos of them.
Photos attached.
Are you that desperate for attention?
I'm going to report the creator of this post. Replied by the creator.
Please don't. Here is the person.
It seems kinda familiar.
I agree. Seems like everyone knows what's going on.
They seemed to have changed some cars. I'm going to cry over how poor I am.
I've never imagined being able to see these pictures on Twitter and even commenting on them.
In the Hale family house. It was a 2-story house. They had a huge living room that could fit everyone. The entire process was just a conversation between Zeke, Jack, and Clarissa's father. Jack was trying his best to promote Zeke while Clarissa's father was still shocked. Jared toured around the house as it was his first time here. He then looked at Clarissa's father and asked politely,
"Where's Clarissa? You are..."
Clarissa's father didn't know who Jared was, but he noticed that Jared was chatting with Michael as though they were friends and understood that he must be powerful as well.
"I'm Clarissa's friend and one of her business partners, Jared Covington. You can just call me Jared."
Jared introduced himself. Clarissa's father didn't dare to address him that way, just as he didn't dare to address Michael by his name. He then turned to Clarissa's mother and said,
"Get Clarissa down here. Ask Carmen to take time off work and come home."
Clarissa's father couldn't handle the situation. He needed Carmen. Clarissa hadn't woken up yet. Clarissa's mother just looked at Zeke and Bessy and headed upstairs to look for her. The helper saw that as Clarissa's mother headed up. She pinched herself. Clarissa's mother knocked on Clarissa's door. She had just woken up and was drying her hair. She then greeted her mother. "Mom?" Clarissa's mother remained at the door and stared at her. She then asked,
"Clarissa, have you forgotten to tell us something?"
Clarissa could hear the commotion downstairs. She knew that Zeke was here. She put away the hairdryer, put on a dark jacket, and headed out before replying. "I've forgotten to inform you that the Miller family will be here today." Clarissa's mother was speechless.
"Have we got some visitors?"
Grandma Hale asked as she opened the door after hearing the commotion. Clarissa smiled and held on to her. She then replied, "Grandma, your grandson-in-law is here." The matter was done rather quickly. However, everyone in the Hale family except Clarissa couldn't understand what was happening. Jack then took advantage of this and told them the date of the marriage. Grandma Hale neither cared about the show business nor the Capital's inner circle, but she knew about Zeke. Everyone in the Miller family was attractive, and Grandma Hale liked him as a grandson-in-law already. The Miller family didn't have a big sofa, hence, only the Miller and Hale families sat on it and discussed these matters. Meanwhile, Kenneth and Jared were at the other table discussing other matters.
Scarlett managed to capture the part where they entered the house, and she was reviewing the footage. Samuel was next to her, seemingly deep in thought. Bessy was too protective of Scarlett, so it was rare for Jared to meet her. Hence, he immediately talked about 129 with her. Scarlett was from an investigation family. Hence, Jared felt like she was the best person to manage 129. Slake Dragon was overseas and had a whole kingdom waiting for him. Hence, he couldn't work regularly. It would be a miracle if Bessy would take on one project per month. Clarissa was focused on being a reporter and was only a member of 129 on a freelance basis. Giant Crocodile was even worse. Jared only recently realized that the founding members of 129 were all freelancers, except for him. Director Covington, I'm not able to do it. Scarlett rejected him. Judging from her expression, she must really think that she couldn't do it. Jared was speechless. Could it be that all your friends are very important people and you can't properly gauge your abilities? Who would have gotten an internship at the investigation department in their 4th year and even managed to remove the assistant director from power? As they discussed, Kenneth was cleaning his gun. He only glanced at Scarlett. He didn't know who she was, but he was shocked by what Jared said. He then made a mental note to investigate who Scarlett was. As they discussed, the Miller and Hale families had decided on the date of the wedding. It would be on the 10th of the following month. It will be settled by the Miller family, James said. I'll come over with Jack to discuss with you guys about the wedding. Do let me know the guest list so that I can get the invitations done. Michael kept silent until the last part. He then stood up and said, The wedding should be at the venue that we used previously. It will fit all of us. The most important thing was that it was designed rather well. James was then reminded that he shamelessly bought the last piece of real estate in the capital, just for the wedding. All right, we should have it there. We won't be having lunch. We'll start to work on the wedding, James said as he smiled at Clarissa's father. Clarissa's father didn't dare to reply and kept silent. Then they headed out. Jared and Kenneth saw that they were leaving and stood up as well. They also quietly touched their guns. Clarissa's father was speechless after he saw the guns. What in the world was going on? Episode 655. Promotions around the board. Kenneth asked James with his lousy English while waving his hand. Hey, are we done? James gave him a look in reply, and both shared an unspoken mutual understanding. Kenneth and Jared then nodded. Both of them greeted Clarissa's father. Jared still looked like an elegant gentleman, but Kenneth looked like a thug. That was the reason Rosemary didn't dare to attend to him. This was especially after witnessing Kenneth speaking on equal grounds with Michael and Bessy. Clarissa's father didn't dare to look at Kenneth. When he sent the few of them out, he remained stiff and silent because he didn't dare to say anything. Let me know the guest list as fast as possible, Jack and James asked Clarissa's father again when they got in the car. Clarissa's father responded stiffly. All right. He had a strange look on his face, and it caught James's attention, but he didn't want to ask much as he was focused on settling his guest list. Grandma Hale was getting on in age. She didn't realize what was going on, and she even tried to ask everyone to stay for dinner. However, everyone was busy, especially Bessy, as she had to work at the Research Institute and the Investigation Department. Hence, she couldn't stay. Grandma was upset when she bade everyone farewell at the door. It was only after they left that Grandma Hale noticed the crowd looking at her. Do come over for the wedding next month, Grandma Hale announced happily. Those in the community who were familiar with her responded cautiously, looking at her in a different light. Grandma Hale didn't notice the change in the neighbors' attitudes and asked Clarissa's father about it. However, he kept silent and walked back to the living room. Then he looked at Clarissa and Zeke. He had only seen Zeke on television. It felt surreal to see him in person.
especially after knowing he was going to marry Clarissa. Since Zeke stayed, Clarissa's mother was planning to cook for everyone. Hence, Zeke went to help her. He even asked James to teach him for this occasion so he could help Clarissa's mother a little. It was only when he left for the kitchen that Clarissa's father sat next to Clarissa. She was still in her home clothes and lying on the sofa, holding onto a can of beer and texting someone.
How did you know the Miller family? Also, I saw your friend was even armed.
Clarissa's father said after thinking for a while. What he wanted to ask was how that friend dared to come armed in Michael's presence. Clarissa then replied, "It was a toy gun." Clarissa's father was speechless. Does she think that I'm an idiot? He then realized that Clarissa didn't want to talk to him and walked away. It was already 5:30 p.m. when Carmen reached home. She rushed over from the capital the moment she got off work, but Clarissa and Zeke had already left.
Dad, what happened? Why did you ask me to return so urgently? We're very busy at the investigation department. The first hospital was on lockdown and I couldn't leave right away.
Johnny said. He came over with Carmen. Clarissa's mother had called in the afternoon, but Jack and the others confirmed the date in the heat of the moment. However, she didn't want to disturb Carmen and asked her not to return. However, Carmen wanted to ask something, so she immediately came over when she got off work.
It's nothing. Your sister is going to get married. It'll be on the 10th of the following month.
Clarissa's father replied. Initially, he wanted Carmen to return to settle all of it. But he never expected that everything was settled so quickly with James. It was even confirmed so quickly on the 10th of the next month. Carmen dropped the cup in shock and exclaimed, "How could you agree to everything so quickly? You didn't tell us anything about the guy. Who is he and what's his family like?" Angry, she continued, "I held back even though you never liked Clarissa. But have you forgotten what happened with Louis?"
No.
Clarissa's father denied it.
But I couldn't refuse.
Before Carmen could rebuke, Clarissa's father continued,
The person is Zeke Miller. The guy from the Clark family and the oldest daughter from the Miller family were here today. One of her friends was even armed. Carmen, you're close to your sister, so do talk to her tonight.
Carmen fell silent after hearing that. No wonder he couldn't refuse.
Were they from 129?
Johnny asked, as he had been to 129 before.
Was there a Mr. Covington today? Yes.
Johnny nodded. Somehow, he was the calmest person.
That's the boss of 129. I'm not sure about the rest, but it was because of the Miller family that Carmen was released previously.
Johnny sighed. Clarissa's father didn't know much about the situation in the capital, but after what had happened with Carmen, he knew about 129. When he heard what Johnny said, he exclaimed uncontrollably,
How did she know these people?
The people Clarissa's father kept in contact with and his existing social circle were far from those people. Even Clarissa also had that distance from them. Carmen and Johnny didn't respond as they weren't sure of everything as well.
Let's confirm the guests then,
Carmen suggested. Clarissa's father looked at her and suddenly remembered something.
Are we inviting the Fay family?
Gloria really liked Clarissa and treated her like her own daughter. Clarissa would even visit her during the holidays. But regarding Louis, Clarissa's father wanted to get back at him.
We must invite them,
Johnny said calmly. Clarissa's father then added them to the list. He then looked at Johnny and asked,
Let's invite the in-laws as well.
The Hale family knew that Johnny had both a stepmom and a stepdad. Carmen sat at the side and looked at the two men as they discussed the guest list. Suddenly, she felt that both of them were too vicious. Everyone would know about it if the Miller family prepared a wedding. Scarlett was going to get a ride from Bessy. Samuel was silent today. Scarlett wanted to ask if he was okay, but refrained. She then carried her equipment and headed back to Northwestern University's dormitory. I've submitted Section Chief Soup's resume, and I'll announce to everyone that he will be replacing Deputy Marshal tomorrow. As for you, Bessy took a look at her and continued, You might be able to take on the role of team leader. We'll have to wait for the investigation department to arrange that. Bessy didn't need to interfere in it as Scarlett was a capable person. She wasn't worried because Scarlett clinched this position herself. "Does that mean I can go to work tomorrow?" Scarlett asked as she lowered her equipment and didn't think about the matter regarding Samuel. "Yep, Section Chief Soup should have been informed," Bessy replied smilingly. Scarlett breathed a sigh of relief. She didn't want to bother anyone. Bessy didn't pay much attention to her and Samuel. However, when Scarlett got out of the car, Michael stared at her. Scarlett went to the investigation department in the morning of the second day. The investigation department was on lockdown for the past 2 days. As Bessy and the base were involved, the employees never knew what happened. However, Deputy Marshal, Section Chief Soup, and Mr. Wilson were gone. The employees had thought that they would never see Scarlett and the rest of the gang again. But who would have thought that there would be an emergency meeting in the morning on the 18th floor? The person hosting the meeting was Gerald. Everyone on the 18th floor was nervous when they saw him for the first time. "We shouldn't be concerned with what happened to Section Chief Soup, right?" Someone who knew Frida asked her. Frida answered calmly, "Don't worry, we weren't involved after all." The others breathed a sigh of relief. When they entered the meeting room, they saw that Section Chief Soup, Scarlett, and Madeline were already there. Gerald then announced the news after everyone had arrived. Section Chief Soup was going to be a director. Madeline was going to be promoted to Section Chief. Scarlett was going to be the team leader, while Easton was promoted to be an assistant team leader. Such explosive news. Everyone involved in the incident was promoted. Episode 656. How dare you oppose it? Frida and the people in the investigation department had been paying attention to the entire situation. Originally, it was shocking for Frida and the others to see Section Chief Soup in the meeting room. Who would have thought that Gerald would immediately announce such an explosive piece of news? Section Chief Soup was promoted 2 times in a matter of days. Madeline became a section chief. Even the interns, Scarlett and Easton, became the team leader and assistant team leader, respectively. Were they joking? Everyone except Section Chief Soup was shocked. They knew that they were going to be fine, but they didn't expect to be promoted. This was especially the case for Madeline. She couldn't be a section chief even after 5 years with her resume. It was the same for Easton. He was just an intern. Even though he knew Scarlett and Bessy, the investigation department might not want him. Hence, he never expected to rise to assistant team leader. The one who was the most shocked among the people on the 18th floor was Frida. She stood up and exclaimed, "Investigator Grant, may I know why they are promoted so suddenly?" Mr. Wilson and the gang went missing for a couple of days, but when they returned, Section Chief Soup was promoted and Scarlett became a team leader. It was unbelievable to Frida. The rest of the leaders didn't answer her. Investigator Grant just glanced at her and then withdrew his gaze, saying nothing. He then spoke to Section Chief Soup and gave Scarlett a look. Scarlett understood he wanted to speak to her and approached him. "How has it been?" Scarlett was close to Gerald, so he was concerned about her. Scarlett then casually replied with a smile, seeing as it wasn't work-related. "I'm busy editing the footage for Clarissa." Gerald knew Zeke was engaged. Not shocked, he smiled and said, "I never thought that they would ask you for help." "Bessy didn't let me help when she got married, so it's fine," Scarlett replied as she slowly followed him. Gerald knew about Bessy and her friends. He was suddenly reminded and turned to look at her. "Are you going to switch careers?" If she was going to be a photographer, he would have a mental breakdown. Scarlett answered him seriously, "No, I won't." "That's great," Gerald said as he patted her on the back. "I'm waiting for you to cling ranks for us to work together." Scarlett nodded in reply. "Oh, right. I believe that Section Chief Soup has spoken to you about this already. It's about the Bright family," Gerald said as he looked at her.
Are you all right with the processing time?
I've seen it already, Scarlett answered. It would take a month for the departments to cooperate. She would have to go around the town now that she was an official member, but she should have no problem attending Clarissa's wedding.
That's great,
Gerald answered smilingly.
Go take over the job then. Congrats, Team Leader Rogers.
No one interrupted them, but what Gerald said shocked everyone. They were initially curious about how Mr. Wilson went missing and how Section Chief Soup managed to remove his power. It was only after, when Gerald talked about an uncle, did they realize. Who would have thought that Scarlett would have such connections? Everyone on the 18th floor was surprised that she managed to get an internship, and some rumors were circulating. However, Scarlett didn't like to draw attention to herself and kept silent. Everyone thought it was just a rumor, but it turned out that the rumor that she had connections in the investigation department was true. Section Chief Soup and Madeline weren't shocked when they heard about her uncle, as they were already aware of it. The incident involved too many important people. Hence, there wasn't a public announcement, and most people didn't know what happened. On the other hand, Frida and the others on the 18th floor who didn't get an answer were cast aside. Frida clenched her fist. She then asked the personal assistant that she was the closest to when she was an intern. It's normal for Section Chief Soup because he had the credentials. But what about Scarlett? She's just an intern. The rest of them don't even have the right credentials. The rest of the people on the 18th floor looked at Frida's personal assistant as well. The assistant looked at her and replied, "So what if she's just an intern? She managed to remove Mr. Wilson from his position. The old man is locked up now and will be punished severely for his crimes. This is a huge accomplishment. Didn't you see that Investor Grant has already agreed to it? How dare you oppose it?" Episode 657, The Wedding. Frida was speechless, and her mouth was agape after hearing what the assistant said. The others from the 18th floor standing next to her had a buzzing noise in their heads and were also silent for a moment.
Those involved were promoted, so you guys should be promoted as well, right?
The assistant wasn't aware of the internal politics. He glanced at everyone, especially Frida, and continued,
Easton flew up the ranks. This is not just a question about an intern becoming an assistant team leader. Since he's now an assistant team leader, he will manage many types of cases and have a bright future. He's inferior to you in every way. So how could it be that he took your position?
Once the internal assistant mentioned this, Frida and the others on the 18th floor had their feelings hurt. They actually sabotaged themselves with this protest. When the incident occurred, they didn't dare to even speak to Section Chief Soup. They even made fun of Easton and Scarlett and said that they were like newborn calves. They regretted it now. It was such an enormous achievement. They would have never managed that, even if they were in the business for 10 years. That was the reason Gerald didn't bother answering Frida. The assistant was initially confused, but he understood it from their expressions. He shook his head. They gave up this great opportunity. They only had themselves to blame. Scarlett didn't care about politics. She was just concerned with taking over the job from the previous team leader and was talking to the Bright family. When she returned to the 18th floor, she felt everyone looked at her differently, but she didn't care about it. She had to change the organization upon taking charge. Not only was she the team leader, but she also had to discuss the program flow for Clarissa with Jack and confirmed the details with the Bright family. This became the busiest period of her life, except for investigating the Barlow case some time ago. Samuel's mother would occasionally ask her out for coffee. Other than her, even Bessy was busy as well. Scarlett could only relax when the time for Clarissa's wedding neared. The invitations were sent out a long time ago.
Jack sent out the invitations to the Hale family. Tucker was in writing out the invitations by hand, as his handwriting was beautiful and he was free. At the Fay family, Gloria had received the invitation. The Hale family didn't make any other announcements about the wedding other than the wedding invitations. They kept it very low-key. "Mom, are you attending the wedding?" Louis asked after seeing the invitation that Gloria purposefully placed on the coffee table. Gloria glanced at him and Olivia and answered, "Yes." The invitation was handwritten, gilded, and stamped with a gold seal. There was an exquisite logo on the front, which made it look very fancy. Olivia took a look at it and could tell that it wasn't designed by a professional, as there was no logo specifically designed for weddings on it. She couldn't help but look at it and realized that the wedding venue seemed to be the entrance of an alley. "I've never heard of anything about Miss Hale getting married. Is Miss Hale not getting married to Film God?" Olivia asked while trying to suppress her joy. She knew it. So many people in Evanston wanted to marry him. There was no way Film God would fall in love with Clarissa. Gloria stood up and replied, "I am not sure as well. I need to head off now, or else I'll be late." She turned and was about to leave when Olivia asked, "May Louis and I come along?" Gloria looked at Louis, who didn't show any signs of rejection, and then said, "Let's go then." The three of them then drove to the destination. It was a Saturday and the traffic in the capital wasn't so bad. However, there seemed to be fewer cars on the road the closer they got to the destination. It wasn't in the city center. Olivia looked at the increasingly quiet road outside and smiled without saying much. They arrived at a huge road after 5 minutes. Everyone knew where the road led to. Olivia looked at the red carpet and asked, "Isn't this the back door of the hotel that closed down?" The chauffeur was confused as well. He slowed down the car and steered it towards the entrance. But before they reached it, a sports car suddenly cut in. It wasn't driving that fast. The driver understood that they were attending the wedding as well and stopped the car to allow Gloria to leave first. He even removed his sunglasses and waved at them. They could see that the person seemed to be of a mixed race and was wearing a cowboy outfit. The chauffeur also lowered the window and smiled at him in a friendly way before driving in suspiciously. They drove for about another 2 to 3 minutes before arriving at the destination. Already several cars were parked. They were mostly black, made locally, and wouldn't attract much attention. That was if you ignored the car plates. Olivia and Louis followed Gloria. A staff member greeted them at the entrance. "Hello, are you here to attend Mr. Miller and Miss Hale's wedding?" Olivia was shocked. The person in the sports car was there as well. Jack looked at him in confusion and asked, "Why aren't you bringing the bride?" Slag Dragon rolled his eyes and answered, "I'm so angry just talking about it. I was looking forward to being a part of the crew, yet they ganged up against me and said that my car was too weird and not suitable. My car raced in the F1, but they didn't like it, so I drove over first." Jack knew that Slag Dragon would continue for the entire day if he didn't stop him, so he interrupted him and said, "Mr. Dragon, all weapons must be confiscated today." "Confiscated?" Slag Dragon stopped his rambling and looked at him lazily. Jack nodded and answered smilingly, "There are quite a few members of the public today. We have to take care of their safety." "How could Sister have such guests?" Slag Dragon answered. However, he remembered that Zeke was there and continued, "Fine." He then took out his gun from his pocket. Jack handed him a red box. There were 2 other guns in the box. Slag Dragon saw that Kenneth's gun was there as well and was delighted. He then dropped his gun as well. Episode 658. Yes, a real king. Jack immediately kept the things.
Go in first. Patrick and the others are inside. All the positions have been arranged.
After Bessy and Michael's wedding, Jack got familiar with Slag Dragon and the others, so he directly let them in without saying much. Slag Dragon waved to Gloria and greeted them enthusiastically before walking inside. However, let alone Olivia, even Gloria was stiff for a while and couldn't react. The cold light of the room reflected on Kenneth's black weapon, which could still be seen. No matter how bad his eyesight was, he could still recognize a gun. Why would anyone casually carry this stuff with them? Gloria's heart almost collapsed. Upon seeing how silent Gloria and the others were, the staff member repeated amiably,
May I ask if the three of you are here to attend the wedding of Mr. Zeke and Miss Hale? Could you please show me your invitations?
Huh? Gloria returned to her senses and quickly took out the invitation.
Oh, you're Gloria Fay.
The staff member and Jack had already thoroughly studied the Hale and Miller families beforehand, and also understood what was happening upon seeing Gloria. They calmly glanced at Louis and Olivia, then handed 3 envelopes to them.
Please come in. Someone will bring you to your seats.
Having seen a lot of colossal figures in his life, the staff member didn't show a slip in his composure, and his aura was also incomparable. Gloria and Louis barely regained their composure, but Olivia was a little afraid to directly look at the staff member's face. After entering and walking along the red carpet, Olivia finally heaved a sigh of relief after the staff member was no longer visible.
Miss Hale.
Olivia pursed her lips and said stiffly, If she's really married to Film God, why weren't there any news on Twitter?
Of course there weren't any.
Her voice wasn't small, so a passerby heard her. He recognized Louis and smiled at him.
Mr. Fay, you're here too. Mr. Palmer.
Louis recognized Sebastian, the Palmer family's current hot heir. Sebastian waved his hand and then explained to Olivia.
At first glance, it's obvious you don't know the structure of the Miller family. That is, Miss Hale doesn't want to make it public. Otherwise, the Miller family would have celebrated the end of Zeke's single life.
Olivia's lips trembled. Really? So it turns out that Miss Hale didn't want to publicize it. Miss Hale is really fortunate.
That's where you're right.
Sebastian turned back from the wedding car waiting for him outside and glanced at her.
You should say that Film God is fortunate. If not for his little niece, he might not beat Miss Hale's friend circle.
Before Olivia and Louis could react, Sebastian continued. He pointed at the 3 tables in front of him and said,
Look at the people sitting on the 3 tables. They're all relatives of Miss Hale. Don't look at the second table. You won't even recognize them.
Olivia looked up at Louis, who was staring in the direction of the wedding guests, seeming to recognize someone.
Mr. Harris.
Johnny's father entered with light footsteps and responded upon hearing Louis. He turned and walked over. Seeing how Louis was ignoring her, Olivia couldn't help but purse her lips.
Mr. Harris, good on your son, Johnny.
When Johnny's father walked over, many of his bosses recognized him and congratulated him. Johnny's father smiled stiffly at them. The muscles on his face trembled again when he saw those on the 3rd table, especially when he saw his son, Johnny, sitting there. Looking at Johnny's father's reaction, Louis had an inkling of what was going on and fell silent. The first few tables were already occupied. Not to mention Olivia, other individual guests who saw those on the 3rd table didn't dare to speak loudly. The atmosphere in the banquet hall was extremely good. As for the 2nd table, Olivia and Louis didn't recognize the others, but the person facing away from them. Olivia's face immediately turned pale at the sight of that person's face, and she took a step back. Glancing at her expression, Louis also looked over and was stunned for a moment.
Are you two okay?
Gloria noticed something wrong with their expressions. She turned to the 2nd table and didn't see anything unusual. Olivia shook her head and only grasped Louis's sleeves tightly. She was at a complete loss now and didn't know what to say. All the mercenaries from Austria had been invited? The wedding car was parked outside the gate of the wedding hall.
Samuel's wedding car was at the front. Scarlett sat in the passenger seat to take photos. With the previous experience at Bessy's wedding, Clarissa's wedding ran particularly smoothly this time. In addition to a classmate from Clarissa's high school, the bridesmaid group also included Film God's friends. The best men group also consisted of his friends. Film God had always been popular, so he had invited many friends in his circle this time. This included all kinds of film royalty, directors, and managers. Because many people were present, each with their own circles, the group of mercenaries, Giant Crocodile, and Kenneth had a weird aura about them. Zeke was different from Bessy as a figure in the entertainment circle. Thus, the staff had considered it for a long time before giving this group of dangerous bosses special treatment at the second table, which was even more special than the main seat. During the wedding, he avoided the second table when sending wedding candy, and later sent out other things to them. Naturally, some people paid attention to his actions. Kenneth, Giant Crocodile, and the others didn't look familiar, and they were looking away with their backs to Gloria and the others. In the middle of the meal, a Twitter post titled "Film God's Wedding" suddenly exploded. Someone at the wedding had probably leaked the news. Feeling vexed, Olivia clicked on the popular Twitter post and saw not a normal Twitter, but a Twitter similar to a wedding. The blogger was a small Twitter account and only posted one wedding video. I've always felt that Film God's character was pretty good, but I'm vomiting now. I would like to ask who those people sitting at the second table are to be treated so specially. A wedding can even be divided into levels. I'm afraid these people are probably foreign kings, or they wouldn't be doing this. Smile. The post's comment section went crazy, and the likes even rose to 190,000. Most of the fans had yet to react to Zeke's marriage. They hastily defended Zeke. However, the special treatment as shown in the wedding video couldn't be concealed. When Olivia saw this Twitter post, she felt so complicated that it couldn't be described. After knowing that the mercenary leader was amongst those people at the second table, she didn't dare to look at Twitter anymore and just looked around instead. Judging from the shooting angle, it had probably been secretly taken by someone in the entertainment circle. However, she had no clue as to who it was. At this time, even with 10 times the courage, she didn't dare to participate in it. If Olivia knew about this, the people in Zeke's studio naturally did too. They had closed the studio for the day and had all come to attend the wedding. When the public relations department received the news, they all stood up and quickly went to find the manager. The manager was now very busy receiving guests. Yes, even as a manager, he had to receive guests in a frenzy. The people in the public relations department moved around for a while before they found him. "Why aren't you anxious?" They explained the matter, but the manager's face was still very calm. "This concerns Film God's public image. Now that he's taken, this scandal won't do any good for him." "Oh, let me see it first." Taking out his cell phone, the manager clicked on Twitter and glanced at the video. Then he looked at the top popular comment and smiled. Under the bewildered stares of the public relations department, he casually reposted the post that had reached the hot spot. "I've always felt that Film God's character was pretty good, but I'm vomiting now. I would like to ask who those people sitting at the second table are to be treated so specially. A wedding can be divided into levels. I'm afraid these people are probably foreign kings, or they wouldn't be doing this." Smile. "Okay, it's okay. Go back to the wedding." After forwarding it, he kept his phone and continued receiving guests. "Oh, Miss Miller, are you tired from holding the baby? Let me take over." Seeing the manager remain so calm, the public relations department couldn't help but open their Twitter and click on the manager's homepage. The manager had reposted the popular post and had added a sentence. "Yes, you're right. There really is the next king." Episode 659. A Few Interns. They were silent for a while, staring at the reposted Twitter. Then they clicked on the comment section to read it. Because Film God usually posted advertisements on his Twitter, a lot of active followers came to the manager and studio's Twitter to find out more about his daily life. When he clicked in, there weren't many comments yet. "Someone tell me what's going on."
Hudson, wake up! Wake up! Wake up!
What? Are you serious?
Confused. The public relations department person refreshed the comment section again. Zeke's marriage hot search had exploded on Twitter, with nearly 10 million views, and it was still on a terrifying rise. The manager's Twitter post also garnered a lot of attention. With a refresh, a lot of comments were added, and the top popular one, "I found him, picture." The attached picture was the profile of Slag Dragon from a screenshot of the picture. There were many replies under this comment.
Thank you, I was surprised.
I can't afford to play.
Damn. I'm laughing my head off. The troll who just scolded them doesn't even know the inside structure of the Miller family. Are you making a joke of the 4 major families?
The public relations department person silently turned off his phone, then stiffly looked up towards the manager. Finally, he turned back to the banquet in silence, thinking about life. Zeke's parents weren't around, so only Clarissa's parents went up to the stage. This time, the host was a close friend of Zeke's circle and was a very professional male host in the industry. He was a few years older than Film God, but it was his first time hosting a wedding.
Zeke,
the male took the microphone and said generously in a joking tone,
"Now that you have a father and a mother, can you endure being controlled by them and your wife?"
Glancing lightly at the male host, Zeke then looked at Clarissa's parents. He said in a respectful tone,
"Of course. Auntie, I heard that you treat the groom as your own son and you're even a fan of his."
The host smiled and then turned to look at Clarissa's mother.
"So, you can watch whatever you want in the future, and he'll always be on call if you want to watch him perform in person, right?"
Zeke had very high emotional intelligence. After a month of getting along, he had an excellent relationship with Clarissa's mother and grandmother, who both treated him like their son and grandson. The host's words livened up the atmosphere again. There were no elders on Zeke's side, so James was appointed to speak. He solemnly looked at Zeke and Clarissa.
"The 2 newlyweds are a heaven-made match. I'm thrilled today and consider one of my biggest worries to be gone. Here, on behalf of my entire family, I would like to express my best wishes to both of you. I want to send a couple of words to the groom. First, life is very long, and it's inevitable to stumble along the way. I hope you two will maintain the original passion and compromise with one another. It's not easy for you two to walk together, so no matter when, you'll be on the same boat and will always have to help each other. Second, the Miller family will stand with you every step of the way."
The entire wedding process lasted longer than Bessy's. There was even a bouquet-tossing activity at the end. No one dared to ask Bessy why she hadn't done such an activity during her wedding. There were many people today, and probably more than 30 single women came to rush for the bouquets. Clarissa turned her back and casually threw the bouquet. These 30-odd people showed their unique tricks and snatched wildly for the bouquet. As a result, the bouquet hit another person's shoulder without being caught by anyone. After several twists and turns, it rolled to Scarlett's feet. The host was taken aback for a while, then he shook his head and laughed.
"Is Miss Photographer single?"
Scarlett nodded compellingly.
"Then our Miss Photographer will have to work harder."
The host could tell that Scarlett was introverted and didn't ask further. Scarlett continued silently taking pictures before joining Bessy to eat. For nearly a month, Scarlett hadn't seen Samuel. After eating today, Luke, who had driven her here on a rare occasion, said that someone would wait for her at the door to drive her back. Scarlett was silent for a moment, and when she reached the back door, she saw Samuel's familiar car.
"Come in."
Samuel put his hands on the steering wheel and waited for her to come over. He got out of the car to open the rear door before gesturing her in. His expressions and movements were the same as always, but Scarlett felt like his whole person was much calmer than before, and the sharp aura on his body had also reduced by a lot. "Do you guys have a dangerous mission on the border recently?" She broke the silence. Samuel glanced in the rearview mirror and smiled.
"I forgot that you're also working in the investigation department now."
He was young and frivolous and claimed not to be afraid of anything in life. However, after being nagged by his mother, he had gone to ask Michael again and had gone to the celebrity's house to see the stone statues of Scarlett's family for 3 generations. Since then, he had stopped looking for her. He had also heard about Jacob and how his methods weren't inferior to that of Gerald's. It was precisely because of this that he had turned around and invested his energy into the industry in the past few years. This was probably the first time Samuel had felt an inferiority complex in so many years. This month, he went on a temporary business trip to the next province. He had only rushed back this time because of the wedding. The day after tomorrow, he could return to the border again. Transnational missions were more difficult than domestic missions, and Samuel didn't know how long it would take him to return, or whether he could come back safe and sound.
Actually, it's not dangerous. Compared to those people who guard the border all the time, it's not even worth a mention.
Samuel drove the car into the traffic and said lightly, he sent Scarlett to Luke's place, and because his team was urgently notifying him, he didn't wait for her to go upstairs for the first time and drove away urgently. She didn't say anything until he drove away. Samuel turned the car and glanced in the rearview mirror. His eyes seemed to dim for a second, and then the walkie-talkie on his body sounded. He instantly shook his thoughts away and turned to business. The next day, it was the 12th. Before dawn, Samuel and his men arrived at the border airport.
Boss, the situation is urgent this time. An investigation team has been dispatched.
Samuel's subordinates took their backpacks and kept up, very curious.
I don't know if they'll call the Great God over. I remember being sent to participate in the closure of the courtyard 9 years ago. It was an international narcotics control case. We won't be able to act if they don't send foreign aid,
the other man said with a look of hope.
If they send Investigator Hale, our situation will be much better. Forget about it. What kind of great god would they send us? It's best if they don't add chaos for us. It's so messy here. We'll have to waste manpower to protect them.
Indeed, if the people sent were of little use, they were basically over. Samuel strode forward and glanced at them.
Stop discussing this matter.
A few of them went to the secret gathering base and drove the car into the bungalow, where they gathered with the inspection team. As soon as Samuel arrived at the door, the people inside opened the door.
Is it the Bright team? We've been waiting for you.
The man who opened the door smiled. Samuel looked at the man's face, and his expression changed. Although he hadn't contacted Scarlett, he had always been concerned with her, so he recognized this person as Easton. Seeing him here, he immediately looked inside and saw Scarlett looking at a map. His eyes stayed on her and he directly said,
"Go back."
While speaking, he paused again and closed the door. The group of people behind him had never seen him like this. Looking at the closed door, they couldn't help but look at Samuel's confidant.
Mr. Palmer, what's wrong with the boss? Does he know the people from the investigation department?
Despite having been with Samuel for so long, the old man had never seen this expression even when he had been shot a month ago. Samuel had closed the door in time, such that none of them saw Scarlett's face.
Don't ask too much about who's inside. She's from the investigation department. I just didn't expect her to come this time.
Mr. Palmer touched his bald head and smacked his lips.
Do you know what's going on? Do you know them?
Mr. Palmer didn't stay in Evanston and didn't know the specifics. However, when they brought up this matter, he was also very worried and said in a deep voice,
I remember a month ago, she was still an intern at the investigation department. I didn't expect them to send her over this time. The investigation department said that they sent the team leader this time.
Someone else also frowned.
How could they send an intern? Don't tell me they're afraid of death and just threw the intern here to die. I already know that the investigation department has a big internal war, but I didn't expect them to be so dark. Just let them go back. Not only will they be of no help, but we'll also have to protect them in the end.
Anyone who heard of such a dangerous case would find interns cumbersome. Mr. Palmer and the other person were both Samuel's confidants, who had seen Scarlett. They knew that Samuel secretly collected news about her. Upon hearing this, he coughed and helped to speak up for her.
It's not necessarily the case. Investigator Grant is sitting stably in the investigation department, so they wouldn't do that.
They might be of great help this time. Anyway, he didn't think that the group of investigators could really help them, so he was only casually saying it. Episode 660, Recovering the Undercover Agent. The mission this time was indeed different from what was reported. Samuel had also reported it, but he couldn't wait for the reinforcements to arrive. He had considered leaving Scarlett and the others at the base. Even if they died, they would die in front of the investigation department. Thinking of this, he turned his head to look at Scarlett. To be honest, even after so many years, he still didn't know what Scarlett was thinking. Compared to Bessy, her mind seemed even more untouchable. He only realized that she was a few years younger than him when he sent her to school. Samuel and the others drove a van, crowded with 7 or 8 people, and no one here would dare to stop them. He pressed Scarlett to the last place by the window and asked, "What did you discover?" Scarlett spread out her palms to show a piece of paper rolled up like a cigarette. "I found it in the area." "Turn on the light." Samuel took the paper and looked at it. "It's the map and signal left by Connor." Connor Walsh was the undercover agent this time. He was only 16 years old and had followed another old man on the team. Since last night, they couldn't contact Connor and the old man, which was why Samuel was so urgent. He remained silent after asking this and didn't ask Scarlett why she had to follow him. As the car drove forward, the people inside discussed combat methods, occasionally asking Samuel for instructions. If it had been in the past, they might have been surprised by how Samuel had broken the rules and taken Scarlett along. They might have admired Scarlett for quickly discovering something left behind by Connor. However, the situation was so urgent now that they simply didn't have time to think about it. Today, they weren't here to suppress bandits, but to save people. Although Samuel didn't have enough manpower, these men weren't ordinary people. Now that Scarlett had successfully found the map left by Connor and the others, they had a success rate of 50%. The other party was originally an international criminal. The base camp was at the border, and he was involved in several anti-drug cases in the country, making him on the most wanted list. It wasn't until today that Connor and the others discovered the place. The car stopped at the intersection. They divided into 2 groups and Samuel directly gave an order. "Old 7, provide support with Old 8 and Team Leader Rogers. We'll go rescue them. Communicate with us through the communicator." Time was urgent, and no one knew what happened to Connor and the others. Samuel didn't have time to give other instructions. "Boss, when you come back, invite us to a drink." Old 7 and Old 8 raised their hands solemnly and said, "Remember to tell 6 that his wife gave birth to a son." After Samuel and the others left, Old 7 took out the computer and opened a panel. Several red dots were moving on it, tracking the whereabouts of Samuel and the others. Scarlett didn't add any confusion to them and didn't ask much either. She silently listened to their conversation and inferred the specific course of action tonight from their words. After half an hour, while leaning on the car door with her arms folded, she suddenly looked forward. "Team Leader Rogers, you—" Old 7 put the computer down, noticing Scarlett's strange reaction. He was about to ask further when a small explosion occurred where Scarlett was looking. It was in the direction Samuel and the others had left. "Boss, how are you guys?" Old 7 quickly pressed the communicator on his left ear and asked urgently. Samuel sounded very calm. "Connor has already come over with the USB. Cover him and leave immediately with Team Leader Rogers. Retreat with Mr. Palmer to the airport." Old 7 stood up abruptly and looked forward. He saw a dark figure running towards them, presumably Connor. "Boss, what about you?" As soon as he finished asking, the communication connection was broken. "Shit!" He slammed the car fiercely. After checking that Connor had returned, he made a decision. 7, take them back first. I'll provide support for Boss." "I'll go," When Old 8 heard this, he quickly grabbed him. "You just got married. Your wife is still waiting for you at home. You can't go." Both of them knew that if only Connor had escaped, the situation inside was probably not good. By the way, ignoring Old 8, Old 7 turned to Connor and looked down at his 5 broken fingers. "Where's 6? 6? 6 is dead." Connor looked up, trembling. "I was discovered, and I was the one who stole the transaction records." The two of them patted Connor on the shoulder. "We're proud of you." This wasn't the time to feel sad. If they made a careless move, then 6's sacrifice would be in vain. Old 7 and Old 8 were still arguing over who would provide support for Samuel. They both knew that if they went this time, they might never return. "Neither of you can go." Scarlett, who had been standing by the door of the car, silently, finally raised her head and turned to Old 7. "You—" Old 7 stared at her. Scarlett calmly said, "You have to escort me back, or I'll report it to your boss." Old 7 gritted his teeth. "Let's go back quickly and tell Miss Palmer and the others to send support." Old 8 stared at Scarlett as if he never thought she would be such a person. However, it was only human nature to be afraid of death. The two of them drove the car back silently, afraid that Scarlett would make trouble. Connor was seriously injured and was unconscious. Old 7 drove, but Old 8 didn't want to face Scarlett and got into the passenger's seat instead. When they were halfway back, Old 7 looked in the rearview mirror and realized that something was wrong. "Wait, where is she?" At the same time, Scarlett had sneaked into the forest area. She took off the black-rimmed glasses that she barely took off and put them on the ground. A pair of eyes that seemed stained with frost appeared. She was a completely different person. She looked at the glasses for about 3 seconds, then stood up and took off her beige coat. She wore only a long white t-shirt, which was tucked into her black pants. If someone was here, they could definitely see the 2 black guns pinned to both sides of her waist. In the faint moonlight, her face reflected cold light. She drew out her 2 guns, squeezed both hands casually, and walked into the night. The person who had skipped classes with Bessy and been favored by Jared was nowhere near as obedient and simple as she looked.